Who are you? And what are you doing here? I have an appointment with the owner. An appointment? Yes, ma. I saw a vacancy for live-in maid. You? You poor thing. We are not hiring. Leave now before I ask them to lose the dogs.
Why would you say that? She's hired with immediate effect.
Oh, whoa, what? Hired? Really?
Yes.
She looked her own daughter in the eyes, looked at her, and said, "You poor thing. We are not hiring. Leave." Cold, certain, without a single tremor in her voice. But here is what made that moment unbearable. The girl standing at that gate knew this was her mother. She had seen her picture many times. The elegant woman in that gleaming car was the same woman who gave birth to her. The same woman who chose a mansion over a child. The same woman who had been living in luxury for years while her own daughter grew up hungry, forgotten, and alone. And what she didn't know was that the girl she was turning away was about to become the one thing in her life she could never escape. Stay with me. If you believe no child deserves to be abandoned, hit subscribe right now, because what you are about to hear will stay with you long after this video ends. Let's go back to a girl named Zerina. She was 22, studying at university, carrying the kind of ambition that made her feel like she was already halfway out of the life she was born into. Beautiful, smart, determined, and deeply ashamed of where she came from. Her family was not wealthy, and to Zerina, that gap felt like a wound she couldn't stop pressing. She wanted more. She deserved more. At least, that's what she told herself. And then, in her second year, something happened that she had not planned for. She got pregnant. It was a one-night stand at a birthday party she'd reluctantly attended. Too much to drink, a stranger she barely knew, and a man who disappeared so quickly she barely had time to say his name twice. When her father found out, he didn't shout, he didn't throw things, he simply looked at her across the dinner table, set down his fork, and pointed at the door. No words, just a finger, and a silence that rang in her ears for years. Her mother, the gentle, soft-spoken Malice, dropped to her knees right there. She begged, she wept, she negotiated the way mothers do when they are trying to hold a family together with their bare hands. Eventually, Zerina was allowed to come back, but her child was not, after she gave birth. The baby, a girl, born small, born early, born into a family that wasn't ready to love her, was named Amaya. And Amaya was sent to live with Malice's mother, her great-grandmother. From the first day she could understand language, Amaya grew up knowing one truth. Your mother is alive, but she cannot claim you. Can you imagine what that does to a child? Not that your mother is dead, not that she is sick, not that she is lost somewhere trying to find her way back, but she is alive, out there, and she simply will not come.
Years passed. Zerina graduated, rebuilt herself from the outside in. New clothes, new manners, a new way of speaking that sanded down the rough edges of her origin. She was good at erasure. And then she met Rochas. If ambition had a face, it looked like Rochas, the kind of wealthy that didn't need to announce itself. A businessman, a widower, a man who carried himself like someone who had already won every argument he would ever have. And he was deeply interested in Zerina. Their courtship was careful and measured. And one evening, over a quiet dinner, Rochas set down his glass and looked at her directly. I have a daughter. Her name is Elira. She's 12 years old, quiet and brilliant, and the most important person in my life. She comes with me, always. I need you to know that. Zerina looked at this powerful, generous, lonely man and smiled the most carefully constructed smile of her life. I accept you, she said. All of you, including our dear Elira. What she did not say, what she could not bring herself to say, was anything about Amaya. Not a word, not a whisper. She told herself it wasn't the right moment, that it would complicate things, that it was the past. Then she stopped telling herself anything at all. Before the wedding, Malice pulled her aside.
Her hands were rough from years of work, and her eyes were the eyes of someone who had seen too much pretending. "A secret like this will destroy you," she said. "You cannot bury a living child and expect to build anything real on top of it. Tell him now, while there is still time." Zarina looked at her mother, at the tired lines in her face, the worn fabric of her dress, and she made her choice. Poverty was worse than guilt. Shame was worse than sin. She cannot lose this chance at love and wealth. She chose the mansion, she buried her daughter, and she walked down the aisle smiling. While Zarina's life filled up with marble floors and dinner parties, Amaya was growing up in a world made of everything that had been taken away. She was quiet, thoughtful, the kind of girl who noticed everything and said little, because she had learned early that what she said didn't change anything. She helped her great-grandmother cook, swept the small yard, and studied by poor light, having decided that education was the only door she could open for herself. Then came the losses, one after another. Melis's husband died. The small income that had been holding things together vanished. Melis had been quietly funding Amaya's upkeep all along, since Zarina wanted nothing to do with the child. Then, Melis's own mother died, and Amaya came to live with her. Amaya watched her grandmother work herself to exhaustion and waited. She waited for her mother to call. She didn't call. She waited for money. Nothing came. She waited for some sign, any sign that Zarina remembered she existed. Just silence, the kind that doesn't feel like absence, it feels like an answer. By the time Amaya was 18, she had become something remarkable, not because life had been kind to her, but because it hadn't. She was resilient in the way only people who have truly had to be are, quietly unbreakable, the way certain trees grow in difficult soil, bent by the wind, still standing. When things at home became truly desperate, she packed a single bag, kissed Melis on the forehead, promised she would send money, and traveled to the city. She had been walking for most of the morning when she turned a corner and stopped. A mansion, wide black iron gates, a driveway that curved out of sight, manicured hedges, and at the gate, a small handwritten notice. Domestic living staff needed. Inquire within. Amaya straightened the strap of her bag, took one long, slow breath, and walked toward the gate. She was 3 steps away when she heard it, tires on gravel, slow and unhurried, the particular sound of a car that has never had to rush for anything. The gate swung open, a black car rolled through, the back window slid down, and Amaya looked up, and time stopped. Because the woman in the back seat was her mother. Zarina looked through that window. In one fraction of a heartbeat, something passed across her face. Recognition, pure and involuntary. Her eyes knew her daughter before her mind could stop them. But instantly, it vanished, replaced by something so cold it had a temperature. "Who are you? What are you doing here?" Something inside Amaya, something forged in years of silence and hardship, held her upright. "I came for the maid position," she said, quietly, steadily. Zarina turned to the gateman. "Tell her the position has been filled." And that would have been the end of it, except that Rochas had stepped out of the car. He stood in the driveway and looked at this young woman with a single bag and a posture that refused to collapse, and something in him paused. "The position hasn't been filled. Why did you say that?" he asked Zarina. Then he turned to Amaya. "Come inside, you are hired." Zarina's jaw tightened so hard it could have cracked stone. She tried to dissuade him, a stranger, unverified. "We should wait for the agency." But Rochas' answer was final. And just like that, a mother employed her own daughter as a maid. From her very first morning in that house, Amaya understood one thing. This was not a normal job. Zarina's instructions came with an edge that had nothing to do with cleanliness or efficiency. Extra chores, impossible standards, tasks assigned at the last moment so failure was almost guaranteed. Amaya scrubbed floors that were already clean, rewashed dishes that had already been dried. She was addressed not by her name, but by whatever cold noun Zarina chose that day. Girl, you, the help, poor thing. She still didn't fully understand why. The hostility was specific, personal, and entirely disproportionate to anything she had done. She just absorbed it, day after day, the way she had absorbed everything her whole life. Rochas began to watch. Elira watched too. And Elira saw things that Rochas did not. Then came the morning that nearly destroyed everything. Zarina walked into the sitting room and announced, loudly, in front of the entire household, that her gold bracelet, the one Rochas had given her for their anniversary, was missing. She let Be Silent sit, then she turned and looked directly at Amaya. The only new person in this house is her. The air went out of the room. Amaya stood perfectly still. She did not cry. She did not beg. "I did not take anything," she said, and meant it with every atom of herself. But Zarina wasn't looking for the truth. She was looking for an exit. She pushed harder. She had the room nearly convinced. And then, a quiet voice from the doorway. "Father, the CCTV." 2 words from Elira, standing in her school uniform, arms folded, expression calm. Rochas reviewed every angle, every timestamp. Amaya had not been near the room. The bracelet was found an hour later exactly where Zarina had placed it and forgotten about it. Zarina did not apologize, not a single word. And in that silence, something shifted inside Amaya. Elira had been sick for months. Fatigue, weight loss, longer hospital visits, the household was told not to discuss. She handled it with grace, with that quiet maturity that made adults forget she was still a teenager. From the moment Amaya arrived, Elira had been watching, not with suspicion, but with the attentiveness of someone who had spent long hours in hospital beds with nothing to do but think. She noticed how Zarina looked at Amaya, not like an employer, not even like a cruel one, something older than that, something with roots. She asked small questions. She assembled a picture. And when the picture was complete and she was too weak to act on it directly, she made sure it would survive her. She kept a diary. She kept recordings. And one afternoon, she held her father's hand and said, "Dad, when I'm gone, take care of Amaya. She is not who you think she is." Rochas looked at his daughter, but she only smiled. That careful smile of someone who knows the truth will arrive in its own time. And she closed her eyes.
After Elira died, the house changed. Grief moved through the rooms like a change in pressure. Zarina had never had a child for Rochas, which made his loss cut even deeper. He moved through his days like a man searching for something he'd put down and couldn't remember where. The door to Elira's room stayed closed for weeks, until one night, the silence became heavier than he could hold. He pushed the door open and walked in. Everything was as she had left it. He sat on the edge of her bed and broke. Not the polished grief he'd shown the world, but the real kind. And when the worst of it passed, he stayed. He held her books, her clothes, and beneath the mattress, his hand found something. A diary, small, bound in dark blue cloth. Inside, a letter addressed to him. "Papa, if you are reading this, I am already gone. The time has come for you to know what I know. Follow the note." He found the recording device. He pressed play and heard Zarina's voice. The recording was from a night Elira had captured through a cracked door. Zarina, on the phone, her voice controlled at first, then unraveling. She spoke about Amaya, about the pregnancy she had hidden, about the child sent away before the wedding, about the terror that had hardened into cruelty because cruelty felt safer than the truth. Every word, every secret, captured by a dying girl who had absolutely refused to let injustice be buried alongside her. Rocha sat in that room for a very long time. When he finally stood up, his face had changed. The next morning, he asked everyone to come to the sitting room. He placed the recording device on the table and waited until everyone was present, the staff, Amaya, and Zarina, who walked in last. She read the room. She saw her husband's face, and something in her understood that the thing she had been running from for 20 years had finally caught up with her. He pressed play. Her own voice filled the room, the confession, the calculation, the cruelty, all of it. The staff stood frozen. Amaya stood still,
and something moved across her face harder to watch than crying. The expression of a person receiving a confirmation they had spent their whole life hoping was not true. When the recording ended, Zerina's hands were trembling. "I did it because I love you. I was afraid. If I had told you, you would have left." Rocha stood up. "You hid your own child. You treated her as your servant. You accused her of theft in front of everyone. You tormented her under my roof, and you called it love?" He looked at her the way a person looks at something they no longer recognize. "My daughter was dying, and instead of spending that time in peace, she spent it collecting evidence of your cruelty because she was afraid that when she was gone, there would be no one left to protect this girl." The room did not breathe. "I cannot share a life with a woman like you. This marriage is over." Zerina left over the following days, quietly and all at once, the way a secret leaves. The house exhaled. Rochas found Amaya in the kitchen. He sat across from her and looked at her the way she had never once been looked at by someone in authority. With care. "I am sorry for what happened in this house. I am sorry I did not see it sooner. Elira saw you. She fought for you with the last thing she had. I would like to honor that, if you will allow me." He told her his plan. University, a proper home, a name that was no longer the help or the girl at the gate. "From today," he said quietly, "you are my daughter." For the first time in her life, Amaya's composure broke, not from pain, from the sheer disorienting experience of being chosen. Rochas sent for Melis that same week. The woman who had raised Amaya on sacrifice and bone-tired love was given the best room in the house. Rest, peace, everything she had spent decades living without. When she walked through that gate, the same gate where Amaya had once stood with her single bag and her careful hope, she looked around at all of it, said nothing, and simply held her granddaughter and wept. 3 years later, Amaya was graduating, not just passing, excelling. She finished at the top of her department, received commendations, and was selected to speak at the ceremony. Rochas was in the front row. Melis sat beside him in a new dress, her hands folded in her lap, her eyes bright with the satisfaction of someone who planted a seed long ago and is finally watching the tree stand tall. When Amaya's name rang out across that hall, when she walked across the stage and turned to find the faces she loved in the crowd, she smiled. Not a careful, controlled smile, a real one. The kind that belongs to people who have arrived somewhere they were never sure they would reach. The applause rose, and at the back of the hall, a figure. Standing apart, not sitting because she had not been invited, not moving forward because she was not sure she had the right. Zerina. The polish was gone, not entirely, but enough. She looked like what she was now, a woman at the edge of a life she had built wrong, watching the consequences from a distance she had created herself. Amaya saw her. Their eyes met across the length of the hall, and Zerina walked forward, past the rows of seated families, until she was standing in front of her daughter, face to face, for the first time in 20 years, without a car window between them, without cruelty to hide behind, without anything. For a long, aching moment, nothing came out. Then, I know I have no right to be here. I know I have no right to ask for anything. I came because I needed you to see me say this in a place that matters, on the day that matters. I am sorry, Amaya, for every silence, every door I closed, every time I chose something over you. She paused. I am not asking to be your mother. I lost the right to that a long time ago. I just needed you to know that I see what I did and I will carry it. The hall was entirely silent. I am not going to tell you what Amaya said, because that answer, her answer, belongs to her. It belongs to every person who has ever had to decide what to do with pain handed to them by someone who was supposed to protect them from it. What I will tell you is this. Amaya stood in that hall as someone who had been abandoned, humiliated, falsely accused, and treated as less than nothing by the one person in the world who should have fought hardest for her. And she was still standing, still whole, still free. Not because her mother apologized, not because justice was served in a courtroom, but because somewhere along the road of an unfair life, she had decided, without anyone telling her to, that she was worth something, that Mylis's tired hands meant something, that Elira's recordings meant something, that Rochas's choice to truly see her meant something, and that all of those things together were enough to build a life on. The child who was hidden in shame, the girl who was turned away at the gate, the maid accused of theft in her own mother's house. She graduated. She was loved. She was chosen. And the woman who buried her to protect a future stood at the back of a hall she was not invited to and finally understood what she had thrown away. The child she hid to protect her future became the daughter she lost forever. If you were Amaya, standing in that hall, on the best day of your life, and the woman who abandoned you, humiliated you, and made you her servant was standing in front of you, asking for forgiveness, would you forgive her? Comment forgive or never, and tell us why. Because I don't think there is a wrong answer. I think there is only an honest one. If this story moved something in you, share it with someone who needs to hear it today. And if you are carrying something like Amaya carried, a silence, an absence, a person who should have chosen you and didn't, I want you to know something. Someone choosing you late is not the same as no one choosing you. And someone never choosing you does not mean you were never worth choosing. See you in the next story.